have the honor to bring to the digital podium Dr. Willy Mutunga to make a representation, some remarks on a judge's perspective to the state of judicial independence in East Africa. Over to you, Chief Justice.
Thanks, Justice, and thank you everybody who is participating, the judges, lawyers, and African people. I've spoken on this issue before, so I'll probably not take 15 minutes. I always start with, I think we are very clear what judicial independence and judicial integrity is about. In most constitutions, this issue is decreed. When you look at the Kenyan one, it's very clear, and the history of why the provisions in the constitution degree independence and integrity. But I want to start by looking at the threats. Okay, when we talk about judicial independence and integrity, the threats that have been talked a lot about are the traditional ones, and those are, the executive, parliament, the corporate sector, whether national or global, and also the civil society. But I've always argued that there are other forces or other threats that we don't talk about. We don't talk about the bar associations and their role in undermining the independence of the judiciary. I know a lot of bar associations will discipline lawyers who are known, to be subverting that particular independence. But there are cases where the bar association actually don't do anything, and there are cases where, in the case of Kenya, we have had examples since the colonial period, of members of the bar that are threats to judicial independence. And then there are insidious ones that we don't talk about. We don't talk about incorruptible judges whose independence is subverted by their wives, their sons, their daughters, their friends, their communities, their churches, their mosques. That area, for me, it's very important to interrogate when we talk about judicial independence, because my experience as a judge, I've always said that my independence, decisional and institutional, was challenged by my community. Okay, and everybody knows that in Kenya, the politics of division are based on money and ethnicity. And so, I got many self-appointed characters, asking me, why are you building courts in far-flung areas? No courts in our community. So those issues, religion, and so forth, are very, very important to interrogate, particularly when they can happen without the judge knowing. Okay, your wife is taking bribes and you don't know. Maybe judiciaries will have to set their own intelligence systems so that they don't rely on the state to deal with these particular issues. So yes, the bar, I've talked to the family and friends, and the other threat is actually within the judiciary itself. Okay, the judiciary can be its worst enemy when it comes to independence. I think we all, particularly in East Africa, we have histories of chief justices who, in the past, would give orders to judicial officers and judges, and basically say, the president wants this done, or the district commissioner or the provincial commissioner, and that there's a history of that, and in most of the constitutions you see very clearly that issue is dealt with. And then the institution itself, if the institution is going to fight for its independence and integrity, it must be an institution, because judiciaries are not immune to ethnic divisions, to religious, divisions, to sexual harassments, and the institution itself becomes, pretty weak. You have cases where within the judges themselves, they are bullies, and there are examples of that, where they, particularly when it comes to benches, you invariably find that within that bench there's somebody, who is calling the shots. So we'll have to look at the judiciary itself. The judiciary itself has to operate as an institution and internally deal with these divisions, make sure that everybody protects the independence and integrity of the judiciary. We know that within the judiciary itself, judges know who the people who take bribes. Okay, but invariably they don't do anything. So we've got to ask the judiciary. We've got to be saying the judiciary. When you are implicated in this particular issue, and that's why the judiciary academies and institutes, when they meet during the annual colloquium, they should discuss this issue very seriously, because I think the discussion hasn't taken place, within the institution, because we tend to give it to the Judicial Service Commission, and we also make sure that those who are, who are suspected of taking bribes or doing whatever. In the case of Kenya, the Judicial Services Commission deals with it. Citizens can file petitions. Anybody can file those petitions. But what I'm saying is, the institution starts a discussion, about this particular issue and seek, solutions. Let me also say that because we're talking here about mitigation, what is to be done, and we've got to glorify the fact that although I've given all these courses of that undermine judicial independence, I don't want to give the impression that there is no resistance, to those forces, because that will be wrong. It will be wrong not to acknowledge and glorify, there's echo in
Yeah, it was from Justice Chinengo, but I've muted. He has muted himself now. Sorry about that, Chief Justice. Please go ahead.
I thought it was from some of the enemies who don't want to hear us talking about judicial independence. But that's comforting, Judge. So I wanted to make it very clear that as we discuss these issues, let's also glorify, the courage of judges and judicial officers, and the fact that in most cases judges from other jurisdictions come to give support to judges that are facing attacks, and that African and global, visitation, for protection is very, very, very important, because judges can be very lonely. And so as we deal with these issues, let's look at the gains that have been made to glorify them, to document them, to keep on giving awards. Although the awards that are given to judges also politically are double-edged swords, because some people might get targeted for it. The other issue about mitigation is this issue of judicial politics. Tends to pop up. Judicialization of politics. And it's another issue, I think, that has to be discussed, because the issue of judicial independence and integrity is a political issue. We can't avoid that issue, and I think what judges deal with is very political, and that's why, like in the case of Kenya, in the constitution, what are called court users committees that sit at every court, to talk to the judicial officers about their concerns. It's one way of building a following among people, because judicial independence that is not protected by the people themselves can never be successful. And I think that idea of seeking a following, making sure that our people also defend the judiciary when you get the executive or parliament, like is happening in Kenya now. There is always this view that the executive and the parliament own resources of the country. So you find politicians now saying, well, this judiciary is blocking our policies, and we're going to deprive them of their cars. We're going to do this and the other. It's all it's all over the place. The president is saying he has a mandate to disobey court orders. He's not, he doesn't realize that he's swore to uphold the constitution and defend it and respect it, and that orders by judges are. He has the constitutional obligation to obey them, because it's the judiciary that has a final word on what particular dispute it's all about. But I think we need in fighting for independence also deal with that issue very seriously, the issue of following. And it can be done through what I call judicial politics. I remember once the judiciary wasn't getting money for, I think it was during Maranga's, CJ Maraga's time, and the funds were withdrawn, and there were courts being built, and the construction stalled. And I think during that period, the judiciary was advised, and I think quite rightly, that the best way is to go to those places where the courts were, where the construction wasn't proceeding, and talk to the people there, blame the governor, blame the senator and the MP, and just take the battle to politicians and others who think that the national resources belong to them, the other custodians, so they can say this institution doesn't get it. And that's how they weaken. In our case in Kenya, that's how institutions are being weakened and starved of resources. And I think that that following that, talking to the people, whether it's through open days, the judiciary has to be to basically come out and have dialogue with the people, and particularly now that, like in the case of Kenya, there is a robust program on African justice systems. So there is access now to elders, to people about this and that kind of discussion. I think in Uganda they have also the counter. I don't know what the courts at the grassroots are called. So there is an opportunity to nurture and consolidate that following, so that when the politicians or whoever says the judiciary shouldn't get money, the people will also, speak up. And the last thing I wanted to say is, on this issue, in Africa, probably, I don't know, I can say that about Kenya, that because of our constitution, because of our judiciary, the judiciary has become, a very important institution. An institution that judges who have the audacity to tell the president that this particular statute is unconstitutional, and they're going on making these decisions because what they are doing, they are interpreting the constitution, and so I think it's very, very, very important that we realize how important the judiciary is, and the judiciary should also think about its role in the future. I always tell people that we've had elections, we had military rule. We should also imagine a rule by the judiciary. And in the Kenyan constitution, there is a lot of debate now around Article 1 and Article 3 of the constitution. Article 1, which says we have the sovereign power, and this power we delegated, to various institutions. And people are saying if you delegate, you can withdraw that, sovereign power. So, going forward, you might find that those issues of what I call judicial politics become, very important. And I think it's important for the judges the judiciary to prepare for some of those disputes that, might get to court where citizens say, we want to withdraw our sovereign power from this institution or from this one. And those matters, in the case of Kenya, under Article 3, will have to go to the, the judiciary.